Okay, picture this. It's the ultimate time capsule of human frustration. We're actually talking about the world's oldest recorded customer complaint.
Wow.
It's etched into a cuneiform clay tablet around 1750 BC.
So, like, almost 4,000 years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the grievance. It involves a merchant, a customer, and, well, a scam so audacious. It kind of proves that even way back then, commerce was dealing with low-quality goods and, honestly, just pure contempt.
And the craziest part is the evidence itself, right? This
Yeah.
clay tablet somehow survived all that time in the ruins of ancient Ur.
Mm-hmm.
And the complaint is just the copper was bad.
Substandard.
Yep. Low quality copper.
That immediately sets up what we're doing today, doesn't it? We're diving deep into, well, the long, long history of human deception.
We want to trace how scams evolved.
Yeah.
From maybe simple misdirection back in the Stone Age.
If you can even call it that back then.
Right, all the way up to these really complex financial frauds that can, seriously mess up entire economies today. And we're trying to strip it back, find the core mechanics, because whether it's about, a bad batch of copper or a ship's cargo that isn't really there or some dodgy investment scheme.
The fundamentals seem to be the same, don't they? It's greed, it's exploiting trust. It feels strikingly consistent across time.
Yeah, we've looked at sources covering, well, pretty much all of recorded history and even dipping into prehistory a bit. The goal isn't just to list scams, but to figure out why they worked in that specific time.
Because the scammer always finds the loophole, right?
Right.
Finds the weakness in whatever the newest system is. Could be a trade route, could be an insurance policy.
Or a crypto exchange today,
Yeah.
Same game, different tools.
Okay, let's start unpacking this. And where better to start than the biggest chunk of time, the Stone Age?
Yeah, like 3.4 million years of it. A huge period.
And we have to admit up front, anything we say here is pretty speculative. It's prehistoric. No written records.
Exactly. No invoices, no angry clay tablets.
The sources basically say life was, well, simpler and maybe more brutal.
For sure. If some early human wanted your nice shiny rock or, that big piece of mammoth meat you just got,
Your options were limited.
pretty much kill them to get it, or maybe die trying. It was direct conflict. Not much room for subtle deception.
Yeah, you didn't really have the setup for, hey, I promise this flint is top grade, really sharp, and then you swap it out for a crumbly piece of chalk.
Right. That needs abstract thought. It needs agreed upon value, maybe some kind of measurement, concepts that just weren't there yet.
Deception needs layers, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It needs a society with rules you can bend or break secretly. The Stone Age maybe didn't have enough rules yet.
The only misdirection was physical, literally making someone look the wrong way.
Which brings us to this kind of funny, hypothetical first scam that made you look.
Ah, the old classic. Divert the attention.
So the scenario is, you want your neighbor, Ugg's fancy new club. It's got a really nice rock tied to it.
Top-of-the-line Stone Age tech.
So you wander over, maybe grunt something about a weird cloud formation, point dramatically over his shoulder.
Look! Flying rock.
It turns his head, curious Ugg that he is, and whack. You use your old club on him, he's down, new club is yours, successful Stone Age acquisition.
Today we'd just call that murder and theft.
Definitely.
But in the absolute simplest terms, it is misdirection. The basic principle. Get the target focused elsewhere while you do the dirty work.
But stepping back, the sources actually offer this really interesting, almost cynical take on what the ultimate Stone Age scam was.
Yeah, this one's a bit more meta.
The argument goes that the real scam was the Stone Age itself ending, the beginning of progress.
It's a sort of commentary on, be careful what you wish for with innovation. The sources paint this picture, maybe romanticize, of early human life as just simpler.
Like sleep when you're tired, eat when you're hungry, no mortgage, no spreadsheets.
No rush hour commute. Basically living like, well, maybe like a well-cared-for pet. Low anxiety, relatively speaking.
And then look at us now, the consequence of starting down that path. Alarm clocks, deadlines, bills.
Bills that have bills, as the sources put it. Constant pressure.
So the scam, in this view, was started by that one, probably quite annoying, caveman. The one who first thought, what if I tie this rock to this stick?
The proto-engineer. The meddling weasel who kicked off the whole chain reaction.
Suddenly you need better tools, which means you need trade, which means you need value, currency, contracts.
And eventually, low-quality copper and anxiety meds.
Maybe if that guy got clubbed early on, we'd all still be chillin', sleeping under the stars. The moment we invented the tool, we kind of invented the potential for its misuse on a grand scale.
Which actually leads us perfectly to the time when commercial fraud was first recorded. We're moving into the Bronze Age.
Right, Bronze Age. It's all about the metal.
Not LeBron's era, the actual historical period.
Huh, no. Bronze needs copper, so the quality, the purity of copper. Suddenly, it's massively important. We're talking tools, weapons, armor.
This wasn't just decorative. Bad copper meant your axe might break, your shield might fail. It's a big deal, personally and, for the whole community.
And this brings us right back to that tablet. Ancient about 1750 BCE. You got Nanny, our poor customer,
Our victim.
and Eonosser, the merchant, the scammer. And Eonosser wasn't some random guy on a street corner. He was known, part of a proper copper guild.
Right, this was supposed to be a reputable source, which makes the betrayal, the breach of trust, even worse.
Finding that tablet, UET V81, is just amazing. Found in what they think was Eonosser's house.
Like leaving a one-star Yelp review carved in stone on the guy's doorstep, and it lasts 3,800 years. Talk about a permanent record of failure.
Okay, let's dig into what Nanny actually wrote, because it's quite something. Pure righteous fury.
He starts with the basic problem right. Eonosser promised fine quality copper ingots, top shelf stuff.
But what he delivered was substandard. Trash, essentially.
But it gets better. It's not just the bad copper that has Nanny fuming. It's Eonosser's attitude.
Oh, the arrogance is incredible. So Nanny sends his messenger, presumably a trusted servant or associate, to complain and, importantly, get his silver back.
And Eonosser's response. According to Nanny's tablet, he basically said, and this is legendary, if you want to take them, take them. If you do not want to take them, go away.
Can you imagine just utter contempt?
In a society where honor and reputation were probably huge, that's not just bad business, it's a massive personal insult. Nanny writes back, "What do you take me for that you treat me with such contempt? You can feel the heat coming off the clay."
And it wasn't just about the money or the insult. There was real risk involved. Eonosser refused any refund, partial or full.
Just dug his heels in.
And he kept sending Nanny's messengers back, empty-handed. Nanny specifically points out these poor guys had to travel through enemy territory multiple times.
Risking their lives. Over, as Nanny puts it, a trifling mina of silver that Eonosser was unfairly holding on to.
The scammer's arrogance literally put people's lives in danger over a relatively small amount.
But Nanny doesn't just whine. He lays down the law. He basically says, okay, that's it. I'm not accepting any more junk copper from you.
And crucially, he states his new terms. From now on, he will personally come to Eonosser's yard and select and take the ingots individually.
He's implementing his own quality control on the spot.
Exercising his right of rejection because you have treated me with contempt. He learned the hard way. Trust, but verify. Especially verify.
Even if the seller is part of a fancy guild, reputation isn't enough. He's basically invented the first recorded pre-acceptance inspection checklist.
Check your metal, people. It's a lesson nearly 4,000 years old. Don't rely on reputation alone. That's the scammer's best friend. Nanny trusted Eonosser's status, and it almost cost him big time.
Okay, so that's individual merchant fraud. Let's scale things up. We move into the Iron Age, and now the biggest scammer on the block might just be the government itself.
Yeah, this is where coinage comes in. Started by the Ionian Greeks, maybe around 600 BC.
That's about right. And initially, coins weren't really for everyday shopping like we think of it. More like standardized lumps of valuable metal, maybe for religious offerings or badges of status.
But then people realized, hey, these are handy for trade. And the idea took off.
And the early system, especially in the Roman Republic and early empire, had a certain integrity. Coins were mostly pure gold, silver, copper.
Their face value was set just slightly higher than the actual metal value inside.
Yeah.
So the mint made a tiny profit, but the coin itself was always worth something substantial because of the metal.
Yeah, it was a clever system. Locally, a silver coin might trade at its face value, let's say, equivalent to $2.
Okay.
But if you took it to another region, maybe they wouldn't care about the Roman stamp. They'd just value the metal inside, say, $1.50 worth of silver.
So it encouraged you to spend it locally, but it also meant your money was never totally worthless, right? It always had that base metal value.
Exactly. It kept things stable until the government needed cash. Lots of it.
The timeless problem. Funding legions, building roads, paying bureaucrats, paying for wars.
And they didn't want to just tax the rich landowners more. That tends to be unpopular with the people funding your campaigns.
So they found another way. Coin debasement.
Basically, deciding to make more coins by making each coin worse. cheaper to produce.
How'd they start?
Well, first, they got sneaky. Method 1. Physically shaving tiny bits of metal off the edges of existing coins before reissuing them, called clipping.
So they'd collect all those shavings and melt them down to make more coins.
Yep, or just pocket the extra precious metal.
Right.
But that was small scale. Method 2 was the real killer. Severe debasement.
What's that involve?
They started drastically reducing the actual percentage of gold or silver in the coin alloy, replacing it with cheap base metals like copper or tin, but keeping the face value the same.
So they're selling you a coin that looks like silver, says it's worth a denarius, but it's mostly junk metal.
Pretty much. Selling a silver-plated token for the price of solid silver, and the decline was staggering, especially when emperors were under pressure.
Give me the numbers.
Okay, early Roman silver coins, like the denarius, were maybe 93–97% silver. Solid.
Right.
By 193 AD, under Septimius Severus, it's down to about 78.5% silver. Still mostly silver, but a noticeable drop.
Then it accelerates. By 254 AD, under Valerian, plummeted to 35%.
Wow. Less than half.
And get this. By around 270 AD, under Aurelian, some coins had only 5% silver.
5%? That's not even a coin anymore. It's basically a copper slug with a fancy wash, a state-sponsored ripoff.
Exactly. The currency itself became the scam. Everyone holding it was being defrauded by their own government.
And the result must have been
Predictable chaos,
Yeah.
hyperinflation. The intrinsic value was gone, but they were pumping out huge numbers of these worthless tokens, so prices for everything just went through the roof.
What did that do to, say, the army?
Disaster. Soldiers were promised good pay, maybe risking their lives on the frontier. They get their bag of coins, head to the market, and find out it barely buys them food for a few days.
Imagine the mood in the barracks. Massive tension between the army and the government paying them in trash money. They felt cheated. Totally. And the government tried to fix it with things like Diocletian's edict on maximum prices in 301 AD. He literally tried to set legal price caps on thousands of goods and services across the entire empire.
How'd that work out?
Failed spectacularly. You can't just decree value when the money itself is fundamentally broken and nobody trusts it. People just stopped selling things or traded on the black market or went back to barter.
It's like the government taking a $1 bill, printing it on cheaper paper, scribbling a 5-foot over the one with a crayon, and demanding everyone treat it as $5.
Perfect analogy. You instantly know the contract is broken. And that kind of fraud, unlike Nanny getting ripped off on some copper, it undermined the entire economic foundation of a superpower.
Okay, so we've seen government-level scams. Let's shift back to individuals, but high stakes. Classical era Greece, maybe 5th century BCE.
Right, the age of philosophers and maritime insurance fraud.
Trade by sea was huge for the Greek city-states, but obviously super risky. Storms, pirates, shipwrecks.
So they developed a pretty clever financial tool to manage that risk. Basically early marine insurance, often through contracts called bottom-re bonds.
How did that work?
A lender would give money to a merchant or ship owner for a voyage. The ship and its cargo were the collateral.
Okay.
If the ship made it back safely with the goods, the merchant repaid the loan, plus a hefty interest premium reflecting the high risk the lender took.
Makes sense. But what if the ship didn't make it back?
Ah, that's the key. If the ship sank or was lost to pirates, the debt was completely canceled. Void. The lender lost their investment, but the merchant wasn't ruined.
So it protected the merchant from catastrophe, but the whole system relied on one big assumption.
That the merchant's goal was always to complete the voyage successfully and make a profit from the trade itself.
Enter Hegestratos. The sources call him a knucklehead, but maybe a cunning one.
Definitely cunning. He looked at this system designed to mitigate external risk and realized he could exploit it internally. He figured out how to profit without ever intending to finish the trip.
Okay, walk me through his scam. 2 parts, right?
Part 1. Get a bigger loan than his cargo was actually worth. He'd load his ship, but maybe fill the bottom of the crates with sand, rocks, cheap junk. Then put just a thin layer of the valuable stuff, expensive dyes, spices, whatever he claimed he was shipping, right on top.
So when the lender's guy does a quick look-see.
Looks legit. Yep, crates full of valuable goods. So Hegestratos convinces them the cargo is worth, say, 10 talents, when really it's only worth 2. He gets a massively inflated loan based on fraudulent collateral.
Okay, so now he's got the loan money, way more than his actual cargo was worth, but he still owes it back with interest.
Which leads to part 2. Make sure the ship doesn't come back. He deliberately sinks it, scuttles his own ship.
Whoa.
The ship is lost at sea. According to the Bottom-McGeary contract, the debt is now void. Egistratos walks away. He keeps the oversized loan money. He didn't lose any truly valuable cargo because it was mostly sand, and he owes nothing.
That is audacious. Why was this so shocking back then?
Because Greek commerce at the time apparently had a pretty high level of trust and respect for contracts and the law. This kind of deliberate internal fraud, abusing the very system designed to enable trade, was seen as deeply offensive.
It wasn't just bending the rules, it was breaking the foundational trust.
Exactly. Hegestratos' case became famous. It was a huge wake-up call for lenders and the early insurers. They realized their contracts, however detailed about storms and pirates, were totally vulnerable if the borrower themselves was acting in bad faith.
So they had to start doing much more thorough cargo inspections, right?
Yeah.
More paperwork, more distrust.
Precisely. The painful lesson. You have to assume someone might try to rip you off, even when the deal seems secure. Always verify the cargo, not just the paperwork.
That vibe, assuming the worst, transitions us nicely into the medieval era, where the most valuable commodity wasn't trade goods, it was spirituality.
Oh, yeah. We're talking about the absolutely booming market for Christian relics. Divine prash, as you called it.
It's hard to overstate how much people believe in these things.
Totally. The sources are clear. People genuinely thought a sliver of bone from a saint, or a thread from the Virgin Mary's cloak, or a vial of something holy had actual power.
Miracles, protection, good luck defeating your enemies.
Demand was through the roof. Rich nobles wanted them for their private chapels, but maybe even more importantly, churches and cathedrals wanted them.
Why the churches specifically?
Business. A church with a famous relic, the bones of an apostle, a piece of the true cross, became an instant pilgrimage destination. Think tourist attraction.
More pilgrims meant more visitors, more donations, more prestige. Relics were big moneymakers.
Which immediately created a classic economic problem, supply and demand mismatch. There just weren't enough genuine relics, especially ones brought back from the Holy Land by crusaders or traders, to meet the insane demand across Europe.
So the market responded.
The market responded with fakes. Lots and lots of fakes. And the beauty of it, for the fraudsters, was the lack of regulation.
No central authority, no certificates of authenticity for saint bones.
Nope. If a traveling merchant or even a local priest had a good story and enough charisma, they could pass off almost anything. An old chicken bone becomes a finger of St. Peter. A scrap of linen becomes part of the Holy Shroud.
And the scale of this fakery got kind of ridiculous, didn't it?
Oh, completely absurd. The sources mention contemporary jokes and observations about it, like the bones of St. John the Baptist.
What about them?
If you actually gathered up all the skulls, arms, legs, and fingers being venerated as his across Europe, well, calculations showed St. John must have had something like 3 heads and maybe 5 or 6 arms.
Okay, that's objectively hilarious. It becomes a basic anatomy problem.
Exactly. And the splinters of the true cross were even more famous. It was a common joke that if you collected all the fragments being sold and venerated, you'd have enough wood to build a decent-sized worship.
Maybe a whole fleet. So how did anyone even pretend to verify these things?
That was the structural genius, or flaw, depending on your view. Verification wasn't about carbon dating or historical records. It was about reported miracles.
Ah, so if a church claimed their relic healed the sick or made someone rich?
Then boom. It must be real. Pilgrims would flock there, donations would pour in. Whether the wood was actually from Jerusalem or just the priest's backyard firewood didn't really matter anymore. The belief and the results validated the relic.
So the success of the scam essentially proved its own legitimacy in the eyes of the public. It's a self-licking ice cream cone of fraud.
Perfectly put. It masterfully leveraged hope, fear, and the desire for divine intervention.
Okay, let's move forward again. Renaissance and early modern periods. The focus seems to shift a bit, maybe towards scams involving art, identity, intellectual prowess.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Let's start with art and a very famous artist, Michelangelo, around 1496, early in his career.
What do you get up to?
Well, back then, the hot items for wealthy art collectors were ancient Greek or Roman statues, classical stuff. Contemporary art, even if brilliant, just didn't command the same price or prestige.
Okay, market preference established.
So Michelangelo sculpts this incredible marble statue, the Sleeping Cupid. Lifelike, beautiful, technically amazing.
But it's new, so it won't sell for top dollar.
Exactly. So what does he do? He gets Creative. He intentionally damages it, weathers it, maybe buries it for a bit, applies some dirt and stains.
No way, he faked its age.
Precisely. He passed it off as a recently unearthed lost Roman antiquity. He basically manufactured ancient history to inflate the price.
Did it work? Did he sell it?
Oh yeah, he sold it for a much higher price to a big shot collector, Cardinal Raphael Riario.
But the cardinal found out, didn't he?
He did. Eventually, the truth came out. But here's the incredible Renaissance twist.
He wasn't furious. He didn't demand his money back or have Michelangelo thrown in jail.
Nope. The cardinal was apparently so blown away by the sheer talent it took to sculpt something that beautiful and the audacity and scale required to fake its age so convincingly.
That he was impressed.
Totally impressed. Instead of punishing him, he invited the young Michelangelo to Rome, basically becoming his patron and launching his legendary career, the Sistine Chapel, David, all of it.
Wow. So the scam itself became proof of his genius.
In a way, yes. It's a wild reflection of the era's values. Skill and cleverness could sometimes trump conventional morality. Art fraud as a high IQ power move.
Okay, if art fraud was intellectual, the political world had identity fraud on an epic scale. Tell me about Perkin Warbeck, the fake king.
This story is amazing because it wasn't a quick con. This guy kept it up for nearly a decade in the 1490s and seriously threatened the English throne held by Henry VII.
So what did he claim to be?
He claimed he was Prince Richard of Shrewsbury. He was the younger of the two famous princes in the Tower, the sons of King Edward V, who vanished mysteriously after their uncle Richard III took the throne. Their disappearance left a cloud over the succession.
A perfect opportunity for an imposter, then. A power vacuum and a mystery.
Exactly. And Warbeck, who was actually the son of a merchant from Tournai, played it brilliantly. He didn't just show up in England, he went for international backing first.
Smart move.
He got support from King Charles VIII of France, who saw him as a useful pawn against Henry VII. Then he got backing from Margaret of Burgundy.
Wait, Margaret of Burgundy was the actual aunt of the real princes in the Tower.
Yep. He convinced their own aunt that he was her long-lost nephew, Richard. That gave him huge credibility. She coached him on courtly manners.
That's incredible levels of deception. Or maybe wishful thinking on her part.
Probably a bit of both. He later went to Scotland, where King James V also backed him, even arranging for him to marry a noblewoman, Lady Catherine Gordon, cementing his status. He was even recognized as King Richard V at a funeral.
So this wasn't just talk. He was building alliances, getting married into royalty. He posed a real military threat.
Absolutely. He attempted landings in England. In 1497, during a time when Henry VII was unpopular due to high taxes for wars, Warbeck landed in Cornwall, raised a rebel army of several thousand, and was briefly proclaimed King Richard IV by his followers.
So he actually held the title, even if briefly and illegitimately.
For a moment, yes. But Henry VII's forces were stronger. Warbeck's nerve failed, his army dissolved, and he eventually surrendered.
What happened then? Henry promised him a pardon.
He did initially. Warbeck confessed publicly that he was an impostor, but Henry probably never intended to let him live long term. Warbeck tried to escape, was recaptured, allegedly got involved in another plot while imprisoned.
So Henry had his excuse.
Yep. Warbeck was tried and executed in 1499. And the final irony, he was hanged at Tyburn, but likely after being held in the Tower of London, the very place the real princes he impersonated had disappeared.
Wow. His success wasn't just his own lying, was it? It was playing on what people wanted to believe, exploiting political instability and the mystery surrounding the princes.
Definitely. He tapped into existing doubts and desires and kept the lie going for an astonishingly long time through sheer charisma and powerful backing.
Okay, this relentless theme of exploiting trust, finding system weaknesses. It brings us to the modern era. There are countless modern scams, obviously.
Yeah, anyone listening could probably name 5 or 10 off the top of their head. Phishing, pyramid schemes, romance scams, crypto rug pulls.
The big difference today, maybe, is how quickly information spreads. Scams get exposed faster than ever before.
True, but the fundamental tools of deception, they haven't changed that much. The sources point towards one scheme as sort of the ultimate evolution, the template for so much modern financial fraud. The Ponzi scheme.
Named after Charles Ponzi, right? Back in the 1920s.
That's the one. His specific scam involves something called international reply coupons, or IRCs. Postal coupons you could buy in one country in exchange for stamps in another.
Sounds incredibly boring. How did he make that a massive fraud?
See, that was part of the genius. It's complicated. He claimed that due to shifting currency exchange rates after World War I, he could buy IRCs cheap in, say, Italy, ship them to the U.S., redeem them for stamps worth more, sell the stamps, and make huge profits, like 50% return in 45 days.
Okay, that sounds too good to be true. Was it even possible?
Logistically, no, not on the scale he claimed. He probably did make a tiny bit initially, but the real money wasn't coming from IRC arbitrage.
Where is it coming from?
New investors. He used the money from people just joining the scheme to pay the promised returns to the earlier investors.
The classic pyramid structure. Robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Exactly. And it worked for a while because, first, the IRC thing sounded complex and plausible enough that few people questioned the mechanics. He dazzled them with financial jargon.
Obscurity is a shield.
And second, the early investors did get paid. They got their huge returns, told their friends, neighbors, everyone wanted in. FOMO, fear of missing out, kicked in hard.
And it snowballed until...
Until the flow of new money wasn't enough to cover the payouts owed to the existing investors, or until someone finally did the math and realized the number of IRCs he'd need to be trading was physically impossible. The whole thing collapsed spectacularly.
And if you connect Ponzi all the way back to Ian Nasser and his bad copper.
It's the same core vulnerability, isn't it? A charismatic figure promises something amazing, either top-quality goods or impossible investment returns.
Relies on trust, maybe some confusing technical details.
And crucially, a lack of proper independent verification or documentation at the start. Nanny trusted Ian Nasser's reputation and got junk. Ponzi's investors trusted his promises and early payouts and lost everything when the music stopped.
The scale changes dramatically, a few bars of copper versus millions of dollars. But the psychological mechanism feels identical. Greed, trust, and the failure to look too closely.
And modern finance makes it easier in some ways, harder in others. Transactions are instant, global. Nanny could eventually go inspect the copper himself. How do you personally inspect the underlying assets of a complex derivative traded through servers in 3 different countries?
You rely on auditors, regulators, complex systems.
Systems which, as we've seen time and again, sophisticated scammers find ways to bypass, corrupt, or simply overwhelm with complexity and speed.
So as we wrap up this tour to the history of getting ripped off, I want to go back to the very beginning, back to and Nanny's complaint.
That furious clay tablet.
Remember, the core of his outrage wasn't just the bad copper. It was being treated with contempt by the merchant.
Yeah, that dismissal. Take it or leave it.
What is the fact that that specific complaint, that cry against being treated with contempt, survived for 3,800 years tell us? We don't know if Nanny ever got his silver back. Ian Nasser might have just carried on.
It tells me that while justice might be slow, or sometimes non-existent in the moment, the human need for accountability, for fairness, for simply being treated with respect in a transaction, that's incredibly deep-seated and persistent.
That tablet isn't just a business dispute. It's a demand for basic commercial dignity, etched in stone, a permanent record of outrage.
It's a reminder that underneath all the complex financial instruments in global trade networks, the fundamental human element remains. People want fair value, yes, but they also crave respect. And scammers, from Ian Nasser to Ponzi to whoever's running the latest scheme today, fundamentally rely on violating both.
So the survival of Nanny's tablet, that specific grievance about contempt, what does it suggest about commerce today? When you get terrible customer service or feel like a company just doesn't care?
It suggests that feeling of frustration, of being treated like an annoyance rather than a valued customer, is ancient. It's the raw emotional fuel that eventually drives complaints, exposes wrongdoing, and pushes for change, even if it takes a while. That feeling of contempt is often the first crack that shows the whole facade might be rotten.
A powerful thought. So the timeless advice remains.
Don't trust blindly. Check the quality, whether it's copper, relics, or investment returns. Demand the documentation.
Always take the metal.
Always.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.